Hi, I'm Cheryl, and I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Cheryl. It's an honor to be here today. I wanted to open with just a quick prayer and silence, moment of silence for those that are still suffering inside and outside of our rooms, and also for a pillar in this community of Lambda who passed just recently, and Bruce Ragsdale Horton. And it was, I had the honor of getting to meet and work with Bruce on a Big D Roundup, Miss Half Measures, Mr. Half Measures that I was a performer in, and I was in the kitchen, and he was in there in all his dragon lady glory. And he was so welcoming and so sweet to me, and I was so nervous. I was only 3 months sober, and I was doing this because, you know, I'm a performer by trade. I'm an actress or a theater major, whatever. Anyway, he was just so kind and just said, honey, don't you worry about a thing. You just get out there and have fun, you know. And I was like, okay. And then we were all about jewelry after that. You know, I had to, he had to show me. I couldn't believe he made all that jewelry. But anyway, so I just want to have a moment of silence for a great, great man and woman. And yeah, I'll just say that. So. Thank you, Bruce, for all you have given us. Thank you for showing me the way and helping me to keep coming back and to recognize that I am powerless every single day to this disease and that I need help. I always need help. Blessed be Samoda be. Amen. All right, y'all. Well, I just got to tell you this. It's the first time I've ever stood up behind a podium and told my story in front of human people. I did it when I had a year sobriety, and I did it all on Zoom. My sobriety date, my gift of sobriety is November 29th, 2019. So I finally came in the doors at 58. And I sat way down in the chair, and I said, I am done with this pain that I'm feeling. I am done with the brokenness. I am done with trying to do it all myself. You know, it took me a long time to get here. And I was, as my wonderful sponsor is sitting up here looking at me with her loving eyes and her heart wide open, which is helping me a great deal, said, you white-knuckled it, girl. And I did. I white-knuckled it for years, trying to stop and then going back and then trying, and you know, and the thing that I understand today, and it was because I came into these rooms and sat down and started listening and saying, okay, whatever you have, I want. Because I am effing this thing up bad, and I'm getting too old for this, right? My daughter said to me when I drank again after 12 years white knuckling, said, Mom, it really doesn't look good on you. And she was right. I mean, who wants to see a 58-year-old woman drunk and making a fool of herself, right? It's bad. And all right, well, so you're finding out I'm all over the place. So just hang in there with me, as I'm gonna do the formula, where I came from, what happened, and how I got here today. Okay, so I was born in Abilene, Texas, July 23rd, 1960, and I am a third-generation Texan. My family's family, we still had the family farm that was pioneered in the 1880s out in Rising Star, Texas, between Rising Star and May. And I say this because family and generations are very important to my family. And I had been taught from the beginning of my life that that we are a family, that my family was important and my heritage was important. And so my dad worked for the family business, which was in oil. My grandfather hit some natural gas, and it was an unexpected venture that he ended up doing well in, which he later lost everything, but that's that. And Dad ended up being an engineer major out of UT. My mom went to UT. My sister went to UT. Everybody went to UT but me. And I went to Southwestern University because I wanted to be an actress and I wanted to be on stage. And that's what ended up happening there. Okay, so I was born. My dad, the family business started going bad, and Dad had my mom, and she's the pillar of the family, and she couldn't take having no money. Basically, they lived like they had money, but they didn't have money, and Dad ended up going to work for Mobil Oil, and he started off at the bottom out in Hobbs, New Mexico, and I had my sister, my older sister, Stacy, myself, I was the middle child, and then my little brother, Robbie. And we moved to Hobbs. Dad got started there. Then we went to Midland. And at that time, I was 6 years old. Robbie was 4. And my sister was 8. It was at that time that we had a family tragedy hit. And it changed everything. But I want to back it up just a second here and tell you that my dad is an alcoholic, and he died of his alcoholism. And my grandfather, his father, was an alcoholic. And it was passed to me. But of course, I didn't know that at the time, but I definitely know it now. Okay, so there was a family tragedy. There was an accident that happened, and Robbie died. And it devastated the family. Everything changed at that point. And my parents went away. And they went away, and I was there with my sister Stacy, and we were going, what is going on? What happened here? And I'm just going to say this because it's important in my life, is that's when I knew that there was something more than just me in the world, because Robbie and I were close, and he was gone, and I did not believe he just went into the nothing, that he was there. He was still with me, and spirit became clear to me at that time, and knowing that I am not all by myself, that there is something greater, there is something else, because I knew he didn't just go into the nothing. And at that time, we had I'm in Midland, Texas, in the 60s, and we had a neighbor down the street a little girl say, well, your brother is going to hell because he wasn't saved. He was 4, right? And I would go to my mom and say, what does that mean? What's hell? And so, forget the fact that she went and tore into that kid's mom and, one upside, one side and down the other. But I realized, wait a minute, so he's gone somewhere, right? But I knew he wasn't in a bad place. I knew he was somewhere that was with me. And that carried with me for the rest of where I am today. And, okay, so what ended up happening is that my parents went into drinking more. And my mom took pills to get through the day. She'd take us to school, take pills, sleep all day, set the alarm. I found this out recently. Set the alarm and come and get us at school. And so it was that kind of a environment where my parents just weren't there. And I knew they loved me, but they were broken. And they did the best they could. And we didn't speak Robbie's name. It was like, my mom didn't touch his room. It was all the same. She still set a place for him at the table. I mean, this went on for a little while, And, okay, so Dad's working for Mobil, and he goes he goes way into his work, and my mom is way into, wanting him to continue on, and she goes to work herself. Okay, so we start traveling as a result of working with this company, and about every third year we would move to a different location, and I was always the new kid in town, right? And I wasn't in the groups. I wasn't a popular one. I was this height in 8th grade. I was awkward and shut down and very quiet. And I watched things. I watched kids partying. I watched my parents drinking. And my parents, the memories I have is that we'd go to a family party, or they would go to a friend's house, and my sister and I would play with the kids, and mom and dad and the parents would be drinking all night, and we would they'd put us to bed in the kids' rooms. I'd share a bed with one of the little girls, and then they'd wake us up at 2, 3 in the morning and take us home, and that was the weekends. I didn't. The only time we did travel was going to the family lake house in Brownwood. Okay, so one of the places that I was living, we did go overseas, and my parents were in Tripoli, Libya at that time, and I had to finish high school in a boarding school. And I was in the boarding school, and I was with my roommate, and we decided we wanted to see what all this was about, all this being everybody drinking and acting silly and whatever. I just, because I wasn't in on the groups, I didn't do the drinking part. And the very first drunk was the very first time, and it was rum and Coke, and I drank till I passed out. I drank till I threw up, and there was no stopping me after that. I never drank rum again, I'll put it that way, but I did, like how it made me not feel anymore and go somewhere else. And when I hit college, that's when I started really partying. I was a little sister in a fraternity, the Kappa Sigmas, and I loved being over there because those guys knew how to bring it down. I mean, it was parties with live music, and it was other recreational drugs, and I was a partaker in all of that. And at that time, I was into my theater, so I was either acting on stage or I was partying at the Sig House, and that was my life, and I loved it. I thought it was great, and I met my husband at that time. We dated through college and then married and moved to San Antonio. And we kept, he kept drinking a lot more. We both drank heavily. And I was so uncomfortable. And it was one of those things where when I was in meetings and I'd hear about how uncomfortable people would feel in their own skin. And I was like, yeah, that was me. And when I would drink, I wouldn't feel so uncomfortable. And I would get loud and gregarious and be the life of the party. I didn't know this, but I was so loud and so, over the top big, that I scared people. And it got to where, I wouldn't be invited to things because they didn't know what Cheryl was going to do next, and, so we married right out of college and moved to San Antonio, Texas, and I kept drinking. We stopped the recreational drugs because we both had to go to work the next day. I had to get up and do things. But then I started having babies, and I had 2 girls. I have 2 girls, and this was in the late '80s, and I was very involved in my husband's church, Alamo Heights United Methodist. And I went to a non-denominational weekend retreat called Walk to Emmaus. And I was sponsored by a teacher that I really, she was a friend, but she was my Sunday school teacher, and I loved her. And she wanted me to go to this silent retreat. It was a silent retreat. And it was a weekend, and they didn't tell you anything that was going to happen. It was all about the experience of it. But I couldn't go into this experience without a big old tumbler of vodka tonic. And I was drinking that on the way. I was out in the hill country, and I'm drinking that on my way out there. And I drank to go into anything. And I did the junior league. I did a sorority. I did the things I thought I was supposed to do because my mother and dad did that and at UT and blah, blah. So, okay. But I was so uncomfortable with it all that I would drink to go and to do these things, right? I'd have a good 3, cocktails under my belt before I'd even go to a meeting, right? And then drink when I got home and all that kind of good stuff. And all right, so I go to this walk to Emmaus, and I'm pouring out my tumbler, just, the dregs, believe me, it was all gone. And I'm in, the first night we had to be in silence, and I'm cleaning out my tumbler, and I hear, "You're dying and you're taking your children with you." And it was it was in my head, but it was definitely not me talking. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, I got to do something here. And the whole weekend was this based on the love of Christ. And it was like I said, it was non-denominational. It was all Christian, but it was all these different people from all these different areas. And it was the whole message of the whole weekend was based on love and how you're loved and how you're not alone. And I knew coming out of this thing that I had to make some big changes. And so what that looked like, and I was 29 at that time. My babies were 2 and 3. I knew that I had to do something. So I go back, and I'm Nora is her name, and she said, well, you need to go to AA, and you need to go to Al-Anon. And I was like, okay. All right, so I went to this to the 12 step. It was on San Pedro, and I walk in, and it was a lot of people smoking, motorcycle looking dudes, and and women with kind of and I'm like, oh my, here I am, I was pretty much dressed like this, And I'm like, oh, okay, all right. So I go and I sit down, and I first do an AA meeting, and I'm sitting there, and it is huge. It's bigger than this room, people, and I'm sitting on the side of the room, and people are standing up and talking, and I pretty much don't hear anything. I'm just like out of body, and I'm like, I was so scared. It scared the shit out of me, and I was just like, oh no, I can't do this. I don't know. Oh no, and I was so focused on the differences, right? I couldn't even fathom how I was going to get help in this environment, and how this was going to help me be a better mom. And I wasn't even sure I had a drinking problem, right? I knew that I drank every day and every night, and I kept up with my husband, but he's the one that really had the problem. Right, he was the drunk in the family, and so I went to Al-Anon. So I tried the Al-Anon, and I went to that, and that's where I felt more comfortable, because then I could just focus on him, and I didn't have to look at me, right? And I realized, looking back, is that I was too afraid of change. I was too afraid of how this was going to change my life, and I didn't have time for that. I was a mom. I had to get the kids to school, and I had to go to church. And I had to be in Sunday school class, and and don't tell me I can't do any of that stuff, and I have to make all these changes in my life. And so I didn't, right? And I focused on the Al-Anon, and I focused on and the very first, I went to the lunch afterwards, and I'm sitting next to this lady, and she's looking at me, and we're, having our salad or whatever. And she said, has your husband stopped drinking? And I said, no. And she said, uh-huh. And and she said, are you going to stop drinking? And I said, well, I'm thinking about it, but I don't know, And she said, oh, well, don't you worry, honey. He's just going to replace you. And, he'll just replace you with somebody else. If whatever you do, if you change, he's just going to replace you. And I was like, he is not, and what does he do? The secretary, for sure. But that he hired, right? And but I did stop drinking, but I didn't go to AA. I just stopped drinking because I was like, okay, so I've got to figure this out, and I still remember the voice, and I've got to do something. All right, so it took about 2 years from that point until I realized my marriage was not going to work, and I needed to get out. And we divorced, and that was a whole big deal. Divorcing in the early 90s in San Antonio, I felt like I was cast out, right? And people didn't know what to do with me. Well, then I kind of decided I wanted to see what it was like to be with a woman. And I had a roommate in college who came out when we were freshmen, and we were friends. Today was her birthday. Happy birthday, Bren. And she was a bridesmaid in my wedding, and I watched her vicariously as she came out and was with women. And I always thought, well, I don't want to be with a man anymore because that was all effed up. And I think I'm going to try something else. And I had watched a roommate in college and a roommate in high school, and they had relationships with women. I thought, well, that doesn't look so bad. I'm kind of interested in that. Well, it was all over after my first kiss, I have to say. And I knew that was more of where I felt safe and comfortable, and I wanted to be with women because we just had a lot more in common, and that was it, right? And so I had one relationship that was just trying things out, and then I ended up with the woman that I was with for 22 years, and she was my fantasy, I guess. I realize now as an alcoholic that I have fantasy thinking. I have what I think it should be and want to be, but it's not. I didn't see truth, I didn't see reality. I wanted it to be the fantastic, and I ended up with 2 severe narcissists. I'll say that too. I was a caregiver. I am a caregiver. Al-Anon. It was all over when I read Codependent No More, right? And I knew that that's exactly what I am and how I think. And it's all about giving, and I'm going to give you all of this, so you'll give it back to me, just the way I want it, right? See, I'm showing you how great, I am, and so now you do it back. Well, it didn't work that way. I gave and I gave and I gave, and I got nothing back. And I was like, what? And I realized, when I was wondering, why am I so depleted? Why? And I completely I lost myself in both of those relationships. And, there it is, alcoholic brain. And I stopped drinking for those 2 years when I went through the divorce. And then Jill and I started getting together. And she drank, she loved her wine, and she wanted me to join her. Gee, I wish you could just have a glass of wine with me, and so I was like, well, I went through my divorce, and my kids are better, and I'm happy, and I have this whole new lease on life, and okay, I'll have that glass of wine. And then over the years, it got worse and worse and worse, and it wasn't fun anymore. And I would go to parties, and I would drink way more than other people. And I would drink before I got there, and I'd drink after. And my MO when I was really drunk was to be loving, was to be very, I'd hang on people, and I'd say, I love you, man, I love you, and I'd kiss on people. And I had a friend say, well, at least you're a loving drunk, But it was so bad because I would not be invited to parties because people would want drunk Cheryl hanging on their girlfriend, or kissing somebody over there, and Jill would just be like, whatever, she got to where she hated seeing me like that. And my kind of drunk was I'd go home and I didn't black out as much, and I'm pretty sure I did. Actually, I say that not. I did black out because I don't have memories, but I would fall asleep on the toilet, and I'd wake up, and I'd be on the toilet, and I'd kind of come to at about, 3, 4 in the morning, and, drool the whole thing, and then I'd get sick, and I'd grab the trash can, throw up, be sitting there on the toilet going, oh, shit, man, I got to get to bed. And, I had to take the kids. And by that time, the girls were in early high school. And, I slowly started drinking and doing this kind of behavior. And I thought, oh, well, they don't really notice me being like this. And that's not true. They noticed, and they would film me drunk and laugh and show their friends. And Mom would be sitting on the bed going, baby, whatever I was talking about, And they would think that was so funny. And they go, look, Mom, look what you said last night. Look what you did last night. And I would go, oh, my God. That's horrible. That's terrible. I'd be so embarrassed. I was like, do not show that to anybody, And of course they did. And thank God we don't have what we have today in social media because it'd been all out there. But anyway, I ended up with a daughter who the wheels fell off. Big surprise when she was sophomore. And I had to get her help. And I knew that I couldn't do it. She got way into cocaine and drinking, but came out later that her father abused her. And I didn't know that at the time on the daddy weekends kind of stuff. And I had the means to where I could remove her out of San Antonio and get her into an all-girls, she called lockdown jail. But it was a recovery program school, boarding school. And that was huge in my changing. And it was like, if Kenzie is going to have to sober up, then I'm going to sober up. But I sobered up. I stopped drinking, but I didn't go to AA. I just did it myself, right? I did my white knuckle. And I was still as messed up in my head as I've ever been. And I've always been messed up in my head. And, I knew I needed to make those changes, but I just kept saying no to the AA program. And Kinsey has since succeeded very well. And she never returned to San Antonio. She went on to Arizona and then out to Oregon, where she was in a transition, halfway kind of transition between college and young adult life. And she ended up in school out there. And I just went out to Oregon, and she graduated from veterinary school. What? Yeah, my daughter is a vet, and she overcame all of that. And I couldn't be more proud. And she wrote me this beautiful letter and put it on my pillow, and told me what a great mom I am, and what she knew that what I did was really hard, which it was, because she felt like she was kidnapped and taken, which she was, and taken to this school. And she did 2 wilderness programs. I mean, we really put it to her to make these changes in her life. And for me, and as a mom, I knew I couldn't do it because I didn't have the tools. I didn't have what it took to help her. And so I got her the help she needed. But my amends to her was, I have a living amends to both of my girls. Okay, so now I'm going to get to here. Well, we're coming out of the rabbit hole now. And so my relationship with Jill ended. And my dad started having major strokes here in Dallas. My dad ended his mobile career here in Dallas. He came from general manager of London, England, and ended up here at the end of his mobile career. And Mom and Dad had been here when my girls were growing up. And when I went through my first divorce, they had what I called the big house in the Park Cities. And Mom had a garage with an apartment over it, and she thought I was going to move to Dallas, and the girls were going to go to Highland Park, and I was going to live in the garage apartment, and the girls would live in the main house. And won't that be great, because I was divorced. And I was like, no, I'm kind of like figuring out what it's like being a lesbian in San Antonio, Mom, and I'm not coming to Dallas. And I ended up doing my thing in San Antonio in a whole nother way. But anyway, my dad wouldn't use Jill's name. He'd say, that woman and her dog. Because I did a 6-page coming out letter to my parents, and I included a picture of Jill and her dog at the time. And my dad would say, that's just a face. That woman and her dog. And I was like, yeah, Dad, well, that phase went on for 22 years, But he ended up really, really liking her in the end. But anywho, so Dad strokes out. And little did we know, his frontal lobe had shrunk so much from his drinking that we all knew he had dementia. Well, I say we. Jill and I knew he had dementia, but the rest of the family was in denial. And Dad's erratic, bizarre behavior and really over-the-top anger issues and stuff like that. We knew something was really wrong. Okay, well, we were right, but doesn't matter now. So Dad, I ended up realizing I had to come to Dallas, and it had gotten to a toxic place at the end of that relationship, and I had to choose. And Jill said, you have to choose, your parents or me? And I said, well, I'm going to go to Dallas, and I went to Dallas, and that's where I've been ever since, and it's been 6 years now. Okay, so Dad passes, and I have the breakup, and I had a 12-year white-knuckle dry drunk period from Kenzie's time period to the breakup. And I finally just couldn't take it anymore. The pressures, the heartbreak. It was the heartbreak. It was I'm crazy, I'm broken, and I can't do this anymore because I had tried all these different ways of getting better. I did therapy. I did, I definitely have anxiety and depression. I have outside help on that. But I just was so unhappy, and I was so broken, and I had no feeling of where I could go from here. And I had an incident where Dad had already passed, and I'm with Mom now, and we sold the big house, and we're in a condo downtown over on Turtle Creek now, and I became her drinking buddy again, because I used to be my mom's drinking buddy back when, and we were in a restaurant and had my Cosmo, had my wine, and then had Sambuca. That was our favorite after dinner drink at the time, and I could hardly walk out of the restaurant, and neither could my mother. And my mother was 84, she's 86 now. And I had to help her, and I'm having to get myself into the car, get my mother in the car, get myself in the car, and drive us home. And we did not have an accident, but we almost did. And it scared me, it scared my mom. And I was like, holy cow, what am I doing? How am I going to help my mother if I am doing this, right? How am I going to, and I had that whole, you're dying and now you're taking your mother with you. And I was like, God has been there all this time. I can't tell you how many times I should have died. I should have been arrested. I should have had a DUI. I did not. I was one of the ones that got to skirt by that, or I could talk myself out of it. And it was all God. It was all God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. And I was, I knew that. And I knew when I came in, and I looked up meetings, and I knew I wanted to go to a Lambda organization. I was not comfortable in the straight world anymore. And I wanted to be with other people that I felt were my people. And a cute butch wouldn't be too bad either, you know. So I did go, and I looked up the women's meeting, and I went to the women's meeting was it 6:30? Yeah, 6:30 on Mondays. And once again, I'm sitting there, and my heart and my blood pressure is so high, I could hear my heart. I could hear my blood rushing through my head, right? I could barely hear anything else that was being said other than, holy cow, I'm sitting here. But I sat there and I went, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is where I'm supposed to be. And it was Roz and Shelley were so kind and welcoming to me, and they kept saying, just keep coming back, just keep coming back. And that's all I heard, keep coming back. And I was like, okay, all right, I'm going to do that. I'm just going to keep coming back. And I remember they were talking about their traditions, and I'd be like, oh no, I'll never have that, you know. I'm really glad y'all have that, and I got a little bit tired of hearing how happy you are, because, you know, I'm not happy, right? And I don't see how I'm going to get there, you know. But okay, I'm coming back, and I'm listening. And then Dawn was chair, and she led the meetings. And I'll have to say this, I did not go to the after dinner things. I was too nervous I felt like I had to get home to my mother. That was one thing. And then I just couldn't do it. I was too, I don't know. It's my ego. That's really what it is. My ego my ego has led me by the nose my whole life. And, you know, when they started talking about humility, I'd be like, what is that exactly? You know, I didn't really even know what that meant. And I'm on my way driving here today, and I said, I need to take a real big bite out of humble pie before I stand up at this podium with y'all, because I just have to say, I'm with my people. Y'all are my people. And, you know, it doesn't matter the externals of our lives. The core essence of who we are is the same. And I'm an alcoholic. I think like an alcoholic. I am crazy like an alcoholic. And I hear my story over and over in different ways. And I'm just so grateful that I finally listened. I finally said, okay, I'm going to set me aside over here, and you just tell me what I need to do, because I'll do whatever you tell me. And I started with Dawn, and it was Dawn that said, you need to get a sponsor. You know, I'd been coming to, I don't know, several weeks of meetings, and she said, you got to get a sponsor, and I'll be your temporary sponsor until you find one. And I was like, okay, yes, I would like that. And I knew that I wanted Dawn to be my sponsor, because the thing that I know, at least I know about things, is that I gravitate towards history. I gravitate towards knowledge. And she has the sobriety that I want, but she has the history and the knowledge. And I wanted to know all about what this is, right? I want to know what this is. And I started seeing how it was working, and how people were sharing how that they were so much better, and that they were happy, and that, you know, they had the tools. And I was like, I want that. Give me the tools. Give me the knowledge. But I know I needed to be with someone who had been there many times over. And I'm in that place right now, and I can't tell you how grateful I am to be standing up here doing this, because I started drifting off, and I am not in the middle of the boat. And this is I'm getting back in the boat. Travis asked me to do my story months ago, And I said yes, and I knew I'd be coming off of my graduation trip to Kinsey in Oregon, and that I would probably be in a better place because I'd been slipping out. And I'll be 3 years in, what? Did I say November? It's October. Oh my God. That's called a 62-year-old brain there. You're not going to want it, but you're going to have it at some point. And yeah, it was October 29th. Okay, blah, blah, blah. All right, so I have to get back on track. But the gratitude, I always tend to end in gratitude because it has been a miracle in my life to finally set myself aside. And this whole powerlessness is something I experience on a daily basis. And my mom ended up with shingles on her face right before I was to go out to Oregon. That knocked me down, and getting ready to travel and being so scared of COVID. You'll see me in my mask because I go home to my 86-year-old mom, and I can't be taking anything back with me, right? And but I did that whole trip, and I didn't get it, and I was like, thank you, Lord. So. Anywho, I feel like I need to wrap this up, but sitting in those rooms at the beginning of my journey, and this was right before COVID, so I only got a few meetings in person, and then you know what happened. And I started going online and doing the Zoom noon meetings, and that's where I got to know a lot of y'all. Because that saved me. That saved me. You talk about how God works, right? And how God does for us what we can't do for ourselves. If I hadn't had the beginnings of my program going into COVID time, I don't know what would have happened to me. If I had still stayed with the drinking, it would have been a bad outcome for sure. But I threw myself into it, and I went to the meetings. I did all my step work with Dawn. We started off in person, and then we ended at not in person, but it still resonated for me. I still got through it. It still meant a tremendous amount. And now here I am moving forward with the rest of my life. And this program is a part of who I am now. And what I want to do with this is going to be shown to me. My prayer is that I am a vessel of grace and change. And I will say, whatever you put in front of me, Lord, I'll do that. And Travis calling me and saying, will you tell your story? And I'm like, oh, Lordy, who's going to want to hear my story, right? That's some of the first things I think you think, or at least I did. And because it's kind of like I don't have the history, I don't have the knowledge, but I have the experience of what I've gone through, and the knowledge that I am an alcoholic, and I don't doubt it in the least. And I have turned myself over to my higher power because I messed it up bad, and I don't want to mess it up like that anymore. So thank y'all so much for being here. And it's been an honor.